All right. Thank you so much for joining the review of the Private 25. The review in which we actually take a look at the tapes that Joel did for a group of selected 25, could be 60 sometimes, and it passes through years. And so today we're actually looking at the 1963 class. It's Christ Attained Even in a Measure, that's the title. But so the important part of this is that Joel gives some great instruction and invites you to a declaration. But we come to that later. So the meditation that I distilled out of this tape is then attained Christ, Christ attained, Christhood attained, or attained Christhood. Yeah, one or the other. So anyway, we're going to take a look at that and we're going to meditate with it. But see, I just don't want to get started right away just for the sake of it. Now it's like realizing that this is, for now, the last meeting that we have with the Private 25 review. It is great to enjoy it together and to know exactly why we actually meet, and that is to remember our true selfhood, so to speak, our Christhood, and come into a direct experience of that by letting go of our resistance to it, in fact. And so that practice is always welcome, of course, and it takes practice, apparently. Otherwise we wouldn't be here, otherwise we wouldn't be doing this. So there's ups and downs and all arounds, and there's the hard reality of the daily life that might not be as hard as you think, but it can definitely have the appearance of it. And so all this is going to be like the light will shine all this away. It's really like that. So allow space in your mind, the light will come in and something occurs, in which also the appearances change. Not as a magic trick, but just as an, say, undoing, or dissolving of the darkness by light. Now, it is not that we battle darkness. We're definitely not doing that. But the light will shine it away. And that's a very fine, that's a beautiful thing to be aware of. And also, say, it's like resist not evil. So don't try to fight darkness. Don't try to fight the situations that you don't like to be in. And don't fight situations that you have resistance to. If you don't fight them, something really occurs, because it's not what you think it would happen that occurs. So if you want to be free of the limitations that you're experiencing, don't fight them and don't try to solve them. And so more of that. Like we can take a look at that later too. Joel will come with some statements of recognition of where you actually find yourself, because it's good to realize, and this is really coming up strong today, which is, it is no longer, say, sufficient in your consciousness after being in the practice, after being in the study of this, after having experiences with it, that you stay in almost like in an idolization of Jesus or any enlightened mind of Joel, like any enlightened mind or great example that you have in mind. It's no longer the case that you can exclude yourself from having the same experience. This is really what Joel is pointing at too. And it's great to remember that. It's like, I have to step up, I have to recognize that the Christ is in me, that's occurring right now, and receiving that for myself, seeing that the study that I did actually yeah, gives me the opportunity to have a different experience of myself. It is no longer something outside myself. It is, yeah, integrating, and it's transforming my idea about myself. So yeah, that's the practice. So that's why we come together. But it's good to be completely aware of that when you're in the meditation and what you hear. And
now here's the step I want to carry you today, because this is the step that we attained in our 1962 Los Angeles class. That word my has a capital M. Every time you say my consciousness, please have a capital M on it. You have outgrown the metaphysical stage of two consciousnesses, a human one and a divine one. You have, in this 1962 class, made a transition in which you no longer look up to the I of me, but look out from the I of me. You no longer look up to Jesus saying, my peace I give you, or my kingdom is not of this world. You are now saying, my kingdom is not of this world. Your own kingdom is not of this world, because you are now capital M and capital I. You can't speak to your friends and neighbors and relatives in that language, and be careful that you don't. But you can certainly look out at your garden and say, you are embraced in my consciousness, and my consciousness is Christ consciousness, because it has only one power, one substance, one reality. You can look at your home, you can look at the members of your family, and you can say, oh, you are embraced in my consciousness. You are not out there in time and space. You are embraced in my consciousness, and my has a capital M. Because my individual consciousness is not made up of two powers. I couldn't say to you, my peace I give unto you, if my consciousness had two powers in it. Because you wouldn't be getting anything but cold words.
across the vast eternal sky. So that's great. So thank you for joining in the meditation. And now Joel is very clear in what he asks you to do. And see, this is a review of a 25 class. So these ones that are there were actually with Joel for 5 to 10 years already. And he has been teaching quite a bit. So they met a lot. And he crossed the US and all this in order to meet all of them. He was traveling a lot. And so that's great. But the expression that he does is really something to take a look at. And that's why I had like, oh, this is wonderful for the contemplative meditation that we just had, to stand still for a moment and like, oh yeah, wait a minute, yes. Of course, yes, it starts with me, like I'm expressing myself as the Christ. Like I have trained my mind, you could say. I've discovered that what I see is not what is really there, because there is no such thing as a material universe, even though I might be, say, confused by that for a moment or take an appearance for real. or my situation for real as I see it with my eyes, with my five senses. And so there's a couple of things then that, yeah, it is like a habit to hold on to the old idea about yourself. That's what many of, yeah, what of us have done and do. It's like you hold on to an old idea, but that idea is gone. So it is a lot of work to keep that idea for what it is and say validate it all the time, because it needs to be validated, otherwise it would disappear. And now I try to be as clear as I can with this, because I don't want to say let you so-called deny the reality that you think you are in. Like if you are in the realization of your Christhood, you're yeah, in a different place, so to speak. It is like that has nothing to do anymore with your three-dimensional world that you appear to be in. And so the perseverance, you could say, I think that word is really appropriate, like the perseverance to in fact deny the signals that you get from your three-dimensional world that you see, is an important part in it. It's like, well, this is what I see, but this cannot tempt me any longer to take that for real. I just cannot do that any longer, because I know better, and I know better. So I learn to stand in this certainty, even, and say borrow the certainty of Jesus if you want. You're like, but you feel that that is your certainty. You have sufficient study. You did sufficient study. You stood still more than enough to know that where your certainty is, where your true self is. It cannot be found outside. It cannot be, like, it doesn't depend on anything outside yourself. So returning back to yourself, that is a process, if you want to see it as a process. But in fact it is a recognition of that what is there and cannot be denied any longer. And not to become fanatic with it, but you are certainly committed to taking that for your reality. And see it from there. Like the rest is temptation to think that it's depending on something or somewhere or something. No, like what is it that you want? Where does this start? It starts with you. And so taking that on as say a fundamental start, that's where everything comes from, not anywhere else. Like it moves through you. And so you excuse me, you can look at it in different ways, but this is one way to see it. And in fact you could say, like, the whole outside that appeared to be there had nothing to do with outside. It just represented what you were thinking about yourself, what you thought yourself to be. That's where that had to do with. And the amazing thing then is to go within and discover this withinness. And you say, like, yeah, I do that when I meditate. But actually I'm saying this is like at a deeper level. I'm talking to you, in fact. It's like there's an incredible mystery going on, a mystery that only you can discover in your withinness, where you see that every aspect is perfectly arranged, where you see that every need is already fulfilled, where you see that you are in a place of communication that is completely sufficient, and that is sustaining you in every moment. You cannot see that. As soon as you validate something outside yourself as where you are depending on for your salvation, it's just simply impossible. So that we come back to that all the time. But like I said, the big shift comes when you start to really go into your withinness and discover, because yeah, that's your real say, abiding place. Yeah, so this is wonderful. So Joel has some expressions, and this is in the same Christ Attained tape, 457B, I think it was. So he has that talk, and I want to say share some of the expressions that are in the same line as what we're talking about right now. But I was inspired to share that with you. And it's so interesting how that goes, because it is I'm just listening to the tape and suddenly one word or one sentence comes up for sharing. It's like, that is to me beautiful how that inspiration goes. And if you say get over the idea that it's a coincidence, but just follow that, then you see how that, say, expands just by looking at it. So here it is. So it is that we accept intellectually that Christ, the Messiah, is not a temporal power. First we accept it intellectually. So it is that the work really is not establishing peace on earth, not even establishing peace in your home. No, it's really establishing a new state of consciousness within yourself, and then watching that new state of consciousness appear as a harmonious universe. Now, I'll repeat the last paragraph once more. It's really establishing a new consciousness, a new state of consciousness within yourself, and then watching that new state of consciousness appear as harmonious universe. So this is interesting. So Joel talks here about really establishing, and you can say like this establishing part that he's talking about is more like a validation. Suddenly you start to see that it is not that you establish it as a thing. No, it is more you start to recognize where this brightness comes from, and recognizing that as a part of your consciousness. So, and that is it's good to recognize and to be exact in the expression of it. Like we're talking here about an experience that is beyond your three-dimensional experience of yourself. Suddenly in your meditation there's some light, there's some lifting of, suddenly you feel that you're coming into a new idea about yourself, coming into a new experience of yourself. So it's not really that you establish that, but you start to recognize it and enjoy it, because you're actually living it. What we said the other day is like the great race. Suddenly you replace the idea of body. And that is really how I experience that. It's like it is great rays. Suddenly there's light shining into your mind that take care of all of it. What I said in the beginning is like it shines all darkness away. It shines all the debris away that was in your mind a moment ago about your situations, about your concerns, about this, about that. Like all of this is suddenly gone. There's a release taking place. If you call that an establishment, okay, but it is more like you start to recognize this as an occurrence in you that is alleviating, that is lifting you, lifting your consciousness to a different state of consciousness. And of course, this is the practice of us, but it's good to take a look at it, how Joel expresses it, and how you can not make it abstract in your mind, but letting it be your own experience, like allowing that to come closer to you than ever before, and see that that's a real possibility for you. I know that I'm preaching to the choir. You know what I'm talking about. I know that. So I love to hear from you about it too. I don't know in what way or how, but it's great. So the recognition of my consciousness, like I have overcome the world. I cannot say that without, say, seeing that too. Like otherwise it would just be cold words, as Joel would say. It's like, no, I have experiences that I have overcome the world. And it might not look always that way. That's okay. But you know that that is what is occurring. Like you cannot be a victim of the world that you see any longer. You cannot you cannot recognize that as your identity. So that's really great. I'm loving it. So I hope you do that too. This is a beautiful one. I love this. So you are embraced in my consciousness, and my consciousness is Christ consciousness, because it has only one power, one substance, one reality. And you are embraced in my consciousness, with a capital M here, of course. I couldn't do that any different. This is how Joel expresses it. You are embraced in my consciousness. And my consciousness is Christ consciousness. It's like a whole mind, because it has only one power. There's no opposing force in it. It's only one substance. It's all made of the same stuff that we call the love that you are. And there's only one reality. There's not different realities. There's not an opposition of reality. There are not different worlds. They're not opposite states. That was the recognition that Jill asked us to make. No, they're not two different versions of you, one living in hell and one living in heaven. And now you cannot accept that any longer. It's like, I cannot make this hell entity, I cannot establish that as an real me, like as a doppelganger me in my split mind. I don't have a split mind any longer. I recognize that this hell persona we call ego, or this persona that we recognized as ourselves before, that has books of photos about the history of this body-mind configuration, that one is gone. That is over. It has nothing to do with the one that is present here. And that process is interesting to take a look at, because my personal experience in this is that goes like deeper and deeper and deeper into every layer of your consciousness as you knew yourself before. And man, oh man, oh man, there's opportunities. There's really opportunities to forgive, to let go, to not hold on to any longer. And I went through a big one just not too long ago. Like I literally died in my old consciousness, you could say. Like that one thing doesn't work anymore. For me personally, that's why I share it, it was like as if I was breathing in dead air. It was really like this. Like I started coughing. I felt my lungs were like, oof, what is going on here? My voice, all this seemed to be infected with past ideas. It was really like this. And you have heard that too. So it's like the healing that can take place on a deep layer when you are no longer tempted to breathe in old air. You cannot do that any longer. At least I could not. Like I could not do that any longer. I literally died in that. And it's good to breathe again. Wow. But it's really like this. Like every time I take one little zip of one little breath of that old, I literally start coughing. I cannot do that any longer. So beautiful. It's very helpful. Okay, coming back to this present moment, it is gone, it is over. So why would I breathe in something that is already dead? Why would I breathe that in as an something to, yeah, to have a feeling for, or to have a memory with, or hold on to? Why would I do that if I see what it actually does with me? So, like I said, it's not a matter of fighting against it. It's not a matter of negating it either. It is just discovering that it has no appeal to you any longer. That the light that is in your mind shines any kind of relationship to that away. And it goes beyond your social laws or the way that you think you should respond to whatever the social law that you think is right. You know, this goes on, yeah, on very deep layers of your consciousness, I can tell you that. It's like beautiful to see that healing take place, but it's intense if you even just pick one little thing from the past and trying to say breathe that into your system. You see that, man, no, that's not necessary any longer. So coming back to this present moment, my consciousness is embracing you because you are present here with me right now. That's alive. That is all there is. That is my consciousness recognizing myself in what I see, and not taking, it's like not making an agreement to just the three-dimensional idea about you. No, I want to recognize you in the truth that you are and disappear into that with you. And that is a true happening. It's a real relationship that we have, you know. So everything is coming back. You can see that. It's so lovely, so great. Okay, so Joel was in his garden. You know this from the meditation. It's like, well, you can walk through your garden and say, I embrace you in my consciousness. I love that expression. So, and you can do this anywhere without necessarily telling everyone that you have overcome the world. So it doesn't take away even the enjoyment of the immaculate nature that you walk into. Whether that's a flower, whether that's a butterfly, whether that's someone. Wait. Yeah, I have to go this way. So you now are referring to my, capital M, individual consciousness, which is imbued with the Christ, which no longer has two powers. My consciousness is the law of grace unto my garden. I can walk out in my garden up and down among those flowers and say, how happy I am that you are embodied in my consciousness, because my consciousness is love. This is great. So now we walk with Joel in this garden and say the same thing. Well, look at that, Joel. Look at that flower. Did you ever see anything like that? It is so beautiful, because my consciousness is love. Okay, so I feel like telling another personal story. Why not? So when I had my first awakening experiences, I had this experience of that people started to check me out if I was doing all right, because I forgot the instruction of Joel. I didn't hear about Joel at that time. So if I would have known, I wouldn't have talked about with so many my discovery. So I come in the fullness of my new experience of myself, knowing that there's no opposite to love, and that there's no opposite to light, and that there are no two powers, and all this. I experienced that. And so coming into touch with a psychiatrist who wanted to check out if I was doing okay. I said, okay, well, let's take a walk in the garden. We had this beautiful monastery garden. I lived in a former monastery as an artist. I said, let's walk into this garden and we'll see what happens. He said, okay, well, the weather is great. Let's go for a little walk and have a talk. So then suddenly I was absolutely taken by what I saw. I was this beautiful flower. And I looked at it and I literally saw like a reflection of the universe smiling at me in such a way that it totally touched me. So I was like bursting into tears and say full of the beauty that I was seeing. Then this psychiatrist says, what's going on? Why are you crying? And I said, well, my eyes have been opened. I can see this flower for what it is, and it's actually an incredible, say, universal event that is taking place at this point, like a total recognition with the beauty of this flower. And then he said to me, like, well, how do you do that? I would love to see that too. I don't think there's anything wrong with the way that you are thinking. I think you stepped into a lucidity that is pretty unique. I said, yes, absolutely. It's like, well, step by, visit me anytime you want, and we can take a look at flowers and all kinds of things whenever you like. You're totally welcome. And then I never heard of him after that anymore. But you see, it's like such beautiful, say, possibility. Not that I have to teach everyone how this works or how this is or what, or who knows, but you get your invitations, you get the ones that come to you beyond the ideas that you can have about it. So like, okay, you're a psychiatrist, well, am I going to be examined? No, no, you don't know why this encounter is taking place. It was essential, like so perfectly fitted into the plan. That's just wonderful. And yeah, that was a holy encounter that we had. So this is what I mean. It's like never for the reason that you think. It doesn't look the way that you think it should look, or who knows what. Like it's so perfect where you find yourself, but you only recognize that when you say really, in fact, declare yourself within your own consciousness. You don't have to do that verbally, but recognizing within your own consciousness, who am I? My Christ consciousness, like that's where I am. This is what I experience. I cannot accept anything but that. So and that opens up the door. That really like yeah, brings you in the sphere where you can actually perceive that. Like when you allow that light to take place, of to be in your consciousness, then you start to see that. So if there's fear creeping in, or you hold on to something, you try to defend yourself, or you do this or you do that, man, you're lost. You're completely lost, because what is opposing a Christ consciousness? No, the Christ consciousness is an inclusion of all of it. And that is the whole difference. Like that is your new, your new state of consciousness, and it asks for your recognition. All right, so thank you so much for listening to me in this little interlude, in this little introduction to Christ Attained from Joel. Right, so we continue in class with maybe some sharing, or otherwise we listen to a bit of the tape. We'll see what happens. And thank you for now. I'm turning this off.